or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Laura, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the August 9th issue of the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. A self-help influencer with troubles of her own. Millions look to Nicole LePera for advice on how to achieve contentment and maintain healthy relationships, but her own story is complicated. By Ginia Belafonte. In 2018, after several years of practicing conventional psychotherapy in Philadelphia, Nicole LePera began a new venture, The Holistic Psychologist, an online self-help platform that reflected her growing skepticism toward traditional methods treating anxiety, depression, and other mental afflictions. At first, it wasn't much more than an Instagram page with a few hundred followers. Within 2 years, there were 1.5 million. A 2020 profile in Forbes described LePera as radically changing the business of mental health. The Holistic Psychologist had expanded to include a website and a paid membership service, all of it available to meet the emotional unraveling of the pandemic. Lucrative book deals followed. LePera's main message, that we are all capable of healing ourselves, was finding an even more pervasive reception. Her chief partner in the enterprise was her wife, Lauren Galvin, known as Lolly, who helped shape the company's identity. Early on, they were joined by a third person, Jenna Weekland, who engaged with the online community and appeared alongside LePera in videos and on podcast episodes. Like Galvin, Weekland had no formal psychological training. At one point, LePera announced on Instagram that she, Galvin, and Weekland were in a romantic relationship together. Last summer, there was a troubling disruption. In August, a startling accusation appeared on the Holistic Psychologist's Instagram page. Dr. Nicole LePera has never written an Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube she's spoken since the inception of her career, someone posted anonymously. She is the face of a brand she did not voice. Soon after the post appeared, the Instagram account went dark for a time, and its followers speculated about what had happened. Many wondered about Weekland, who had vanished from the Holistic Psychologist community about 4 months earlier. Traditional therapy demands a certain anonymity on the part of the clinician. But media therapists, as the psychiatrist and author M. Scott Peck long ago described this segment of the guru class, build their images on self-revelation. Given that LePera had shared so much about her own life online and in her popular self-help books, it was logical that her followers would be curious about what had changed. The story became clearer earlier this year, when Weekland sued LePera and Galvin, arguing that her role in the Holistic Psychologist was foundational, and that she deserved significantly more compensation than she had received. LePera and Galvin then filed a lawsuit against Weekland, accusing her of misusing company funds. The civil cases, which include allegations of assault, were soon accompanied by police reports. All of it suggested that LePera's life was marked less by an acquired serenity than by an instability and crisis. LePera had landed in uncomfortable contrast to her own advice to choose people who bring peace and contentment instead of chaos and suffering. In her writings, LePera describes growing up in a household overlaid with anxiety. If her parents were late to meet her, she assumed the worst, that they had died. As she tells it, LePera often found her needs subjugated to those of a much older sister, who suffered from chronic illness. Their parents met problems in a spirit of agitation, whether they were one ingredient short for dinner or in the throes of a domestic emergency. Catastrophizing was the family's default mental state. Wishing to hold their attention, LaPera worked hard at everything. Efforts that led her to Cornell University and a doctoral program in clinical psychology at the New School for Social Research in New York. She was drawn to attachment theory, which posits that bonds we develop with parental figures in infancy and early childhood determine our relationship styles in adult life. Meeting Galvin was a turning point. She felt right, as LaPera put it in her book, How to Do the Work. Galvin challenged LaPera in ways that excited her, she wrote. Together they built a life in Philadelphia, where LaPera had grown up and now ran her practice. Her clients were rich people and poor people, stressed out professionals and the formerly incarcerated. No matter who they were, they felt stuck, she observed, wanting change but failing to enact it. More and more, she felt the same way. The issue crystallized, becoming her rock bottom, she would write, about 13 years ago, shortly after her 30th birthday. On vacation with Galvin, she suffered an acute bout of despair. She began connecting her physical ailments, stomach trouble, fainting, panic attacks, to the childhood tensions that conventional therapy had failed to resolve. With Galvin's help, LaPera undertook the slow and steady work of repairing her body and mind. The couple began every morning with meditation. They studied nutrition and lifted weights. They married and imagined the new professional path that led to the creation of holistic psychologist. Eventually, she started talking about nervous system deregulation rather than mental illness, a designation she had come to question. Weakland's lawsuit against the couple surfaced as a matter of online conversation a few months after it was filed. So it did little to interfere with the launch of LaPera's latest book, Reparenting the Inner Child, which arrived in March as an immediate bestseller, with an effusive endorsement from Mel Robbins. LaPera's book tour included appearances at the Royal Geographic Society in London and the 92nd Street Y Manhattan's epicenter of bourgeois cultural exchange. On stage in New York before a sold-out crowd, LaPera was interviewed by Ellen Vora, a Columbia-trained psychiatrist who called her a guiding light for the future. That night, as she had in the past, LaPera presented herself as someone who, although still at work on herself, had overcome. I would see someone that hurt me, and I would immediately understand why they did it, from their childhood, the wounding, she said, explaining an unhealthy tendency she had to empathize in excess. LaPera, 43, talked about reparenting herself. She had taken an extended break from her family to explore who she was. It was hard, she said, but here too she seemed to prevail. Her father was seated in the audience, and she pointed affectionately toward him. What was reparenting exactly? Vora asked. It was showing up in a different way for ourselves, LaPera answered, being the supportive, caring, attuned caregiver that very few of us had in childhood. Derived from the pop psychology of the 1970s, the idea was hardly original to her, but she had revived it for a new generation. LaPera's first experience of celebrity occurred in the summer of 2019, when she decided to conduct an inner child meditation oceanside in Los Angeles. The turnout astonished her. Weakland, a frequent poster on the Holistic Psychologist Instagram account, was among those on the beach in Venice that August morning. At 32, she was a recent transplant to Los Angeles from Colorado, where she had worked as a nurse's aide in a pediatric oncology unit. Although she arrived too late for the session, Weakland met LaPera and gave her a deck of oracle cards. Soon they began messaging each other, or at least that is what Weakland assumed. Later, she came to believe that she had been communicating with Galvin, she told me. LaPera and Galvin declined interview requests sent to them through their lawyers, as well as LaPera's literary agent and book publicists. When asked by phone about specific allegations, one of those lawyers said she had no comment and hung up. The Holistic Psychologist took shape as a website, with LaPera as the face of a startup devoted to mental fitness. With Galvin, she expanded the franchise to include the Self-Healers Circle. At $20 a month, the cost, now $26, was roughly equal to what 4 or 5 minutes of individual therapy would set you back in Tribeca or West Hollywood. Beyond monthly Q&As with LaPera, the Circle offered members a range of online events, lectures, and somatic practices. When the site went live, so many people tried to enroll that the external server crashed. Weekland sent a message offering to help and was immediately hired. Telegenic and open in her effect, Weekland started appearing on camera, heading some of the Circle's content teachings, in which she shared her own story as a child of parents immersed in poverty and addiction. With LaPera, she co-hosted Self-Healers Soundboard, a podcast that ran for 2 years. Not long after starting her job, Weekland received an invitation from LaPera and Galvin to spend part of the holiday season with them. Landing in Philadelphia after Christmas, Weekland made her way to the Four Seasons. In a single room with 2 beds, the couple laid out gifts for her. Weekland said. Later, they decamped to an Airbnb in the Poconos, where on New Year's Eve, Weekland recalled, they drank, smoked weed, and kissed. Weekland quickly fell for both women. With them, she said she felt chosen. By July 2021, they had moved into a rented stucco house in Scottsdale, Arizona, where they bought a bed large enough for 3. LaPera announced the new configuration on Instagram. "I am in a throuple," the post began. "A 3-person committed relationship." She had been reluctant to share this, she said, but she and her partners had promised to be transparent, authentic, and candid about who we are. A few months into the arrangement, Weekland grew close to a next-door neighbor, Jennifer Kolsar. From the beginning, Kolsar said in an interview she overheard arguments coming from the backyard, some of which frightened her daughter. Jenna once asked, "Can you hear us? What can you hear?" Kolsar told me. And I told her I heard a lot of accusations. Kolsar told Weekland that she was particularly struck by her partner's habit of constantly telling her that she was the problem. Still, Weekland's role in the company was growing. In 2023, she signed an agreement with LaPera and Galvin, giving her a 1/3 ownership stake in JuniorTine, the parent company of the Holistic Psychologist. The audience for the Instagram account grew to 9 million followers, delivering a constant churn of aphorism along the way. Some of the posts were philosophical, sharp, even poetic. Grieving the death of a parent who is still alive means realizing the person you needed never existed. Others were confounding. Not knowing that you are hungry is a core sign of unresolved trauma. LaPera's popularity was also fed by online videos in which she used role play to illustrate her insights. In vignettes on maternal narcissism, LaPera typically portrayed both the stunted mother and the yearning child, now grown up. But for a while, it was Weekland cast as the young daughter, victimized by an oblivious mother. In a standard scenario, Weekland is on the floor, hair and pigtails, clutching a stuffed penguin. In one clip, her character explains that she feels loved only for her accomplishments. "That won't matter when you're at Harvard," LaPera responds, demonstrating the worst possible parental reaction. Other videos had Weekland acting as the patient to LaPera's therapist. "Given the underlying power imbalance of our actual relationship," Weekland said, "those just made me feel sick." She struggled to leave. For so long, I'd try on everything Lolly and Nicole told me about myself, all the criticism, the opinions, the diagnosis, Weakland said. In March of 2025, she moved out. Late that spring, Weakland flew east to stay with friends in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. She didn't want LaPera and Galvin to know where she had gone, but suspected she was being tracked. Hoping to throw them off, she sent a delivery of cat food to one of her previous short-term rental addresses in Scottsdale and asked her friend Kolsar to pick it up. When Kolsar arrived, she told me she saw LaPera and Galvin in a car outside the building. When Kolsar returned later, she said, the couple was still there. Weakland's host in Gettysburg, an epidemiologist, said that Weakland had told her about the incident right after it happened. It just blows your mind that these are the people who are presenting themselves as self-help, Kolsar said. Despite the conflict, LaPera joined Weakland in Gettysburg in July. They stayed with Weakland's friend, who described LaPera as relaxed and happy during her visit. Weakland and LaPera had never spent so much time alone together and grew closer. Later that summer, Weakland and LaPera were back in Scottsdale. It was against this backdrop that the anonymously written Instagram post claiming that LaPera was the face of a brand she did not voice appeared. In fact, Galvin had written it, as she had LaPera later admitted in their legal filings. This was not Galvin's first expression of volatility. In 2012, according to New Jersey Public Records, an order of protection was taken out against her in a domestic violence case. Several years later, Galvin came under the scrutiny of Pennsylvania regulators who fined her $3,000 for diverting money from a GoFundMe she had ostensibly set up to help the homeless into her own bank account. LaPera and Galvin were now living together again. Weakland saw the couple for the last time in October 2025, she said. They talked about the company. The conversation got tense. So tense that Weakland ripped LaPera's glasses off her head, something she regrets. In their suit, LaPera and Galvin said the incident had left LaPera legally blind. In retaliation, Weakland maintains in her own suit, LaPera pushed her down a flight of stairs. LaPera and Galvin have denied this. That evening, Weakland went to an urgent care facility to be treated for a bruised and swollen ankle. A week later, on October 14th, still bruised, she visited a naturopathic doctor, Sabrina Solt. In an interview, Solt said that Weakland had shared her claim that LaPera had pushed her down the stairs. Solt said she had prescribed peptides to increase blood flow to the joint. On a few occasions when we spoke, Weakland teared up when talking about how much she had loved her former partners and how she could look at them still and see the troubled girls they had been. Weakland remained on the payroll until January of this year, when she was fired. In February, she filed her suit against the couple in Arizona Supreme Court for breach of contract. She argued that her role in the company entitled her to at least $3.5 million, an amount she said she based partly on the 2023 partnership agreement. In a reply to Weakland's lawsuit in March, LaPera and Galvin claimed the figure was outrageous, adding that Weakland had often failed to deliver materials on schedule and that her role had been merely administrative, a position complicated by Weakland's appearance in the company's content. In May, LaPera and Galvin filed a lawsuit against Weakland that lists Junior Tyne as the plaintiff. The suit paints Weakland as an angry, lazy, and manipulative person. LaPera described her differently in her 2023 book, How to Be the Love You Seek. Jenna quickly established herself as an essential member of our team, she wrote, bringing communication and leadership that complemented the strengths Lolly and I had. Among Weakland's claims is that she had helped brainstorm the books and should receive some profit. But in their response to Weakland's suit, LaPera and Galvin stated, all books were written solely by LaPrera. A spokeswoman for Flatiron Books, which published Reparenting the Inner Child, said the book was written with a ghostwriter. Taken as a whole, the documents provide a view of unhinged behavior among the women, who seem fixated on arguing and surveilling one another. Weakland acknowledged that all three had frequently recorded their fights. In her suit, Weakland maintains that Galvin threatened to release private recordings of her, including nude videos, and that LaPrera did not stop Galvin's extortionist threats. The couple, in response, claimed that Galvin had not threatened to send nude images, but rather videos of Weakland being physically abusive. Weakland went on to file a complaint regarding the matter with the Scottsdale Police Department. LaPrera filed her own report with the police, maintaining that Weakland improperly used her credit card last year to make thousands of dollars worth of purchases on Amazon and elsewhere. Weakland denied that claim. In their lawsuit, LaPrera and Galvin further alleged that Weakland had misappropriated a total of more than $1 million of corporate funds for her own use. Weakland denied this too, saying in an email that the expenditures were all business-related. Those issues have yet to be resolved. But in court in February, Weakland won a protective order against Galvin, effective for 2 years. The petition included her contention that Galvin had entered her backyard, peered into her windows, and sent her images of her trespass. In legal filings, Galvin and LaPrera denied Weakland's interpretation. LaPrera's continuing influence invites the question of how much it ought to matter if your therapist, either someone you see in person or a public figure you have come to rely on, lives a life very different from the one he or she is trying to help you achieve. If the treatment is succeeding, should it be of any consequence? Central to the field of medical humanities is the Jungian idea of the wounded healer, a figure whose own pain becomes a vital instrument in curing others. But what if the healer's own pain seems insurmountable or corrosive? At the end of LaPrera's talk at the 92nd Y, audience members were given a chance to ask questions. One woman got up to say she had done everything, all the journaling, all the self-interrogation, and was still not where she wanted to be. LaPrera smiled in commiseration. The saying that many of us love to hate is that healing isn't linear, she said, and that is real. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. For some singles, Hobby Armory has replaced hookups. Is a packed social calendar the new relationship goals? By Sadiba Hassan. Salsa class after work on Monday. Chess club on Tuesday. Boxing on Wednesday. That was only the first half of Tylo Laidlaw's week. So when the conversation turned to dating, the answer is simple. Lately, he's making more time for hobbies than dates. After his last relationship ended in 2024, Laidlaw realized he'd become stagnant and robotic. Even though he followed the trajectory of graduating from college, getting a job and saving money, something was missing, he said. He wasn't feeling connected to himself. Laidlaw, 30, started trying different hobbies. For him, it was about staying curious and putting himself in environments he wouldn't otherwise be in. And now he feels more well-rounded. Chess, for example, introduced him to new people and taught him life lessons around strategy and accountability. I'm so fulfilled in my life that I know the right person will come, said Laidlaw, a freelancer in creative direction who lives in London. But I'm not out searching for it. Even though he's a relationship kind of guy, I want to do the boombox outside the house, he said, referencing a scene from the 1989 classic film Say Anything. He's finding he's less concerned with dating because he's enriched in other ways. I'm so good with where I'm at, he said, that the energy becomes infectious. You could call it hobby armory. Laidlaw is among a growing number of singles emphasizing multiple hobbies over dating. Rather than spending hours swiping and messaging on apps, these singles are investing their time, energy, and disposable income in passions like rock climbing, cake decorating, or cyanotype printmaking. They say their social calendars are packed, their friend groups are expanding, and their lives feel rich, with or without a romantic partner. Young people are prioritizing their well-being and happiness in a way that other generations have not, said Alexandra Solomon, a clinical psychologist and adjunct professor at Northwestern University. Lots of people in this generation are asking important questions about this capitalist model of working from 9 to 5, Dr. Solomon said. They're trying to create lives that have some more flexibility and adaptability, and that really value the experiences in life that are beyond just earning money. They are also a generation feeling disenfranchised by AI and disinclined toward drinking, making wholesome, creative, and tactile activities all the more appealing. Online, terms like hobby maxing, the pursuit of as many hobbies as possible, have taken off. According to TikTok, #hobbies has seen an almost 15% increase in posts in the US so far in 2026 compared with last year, and #grandmahobbies has grown by more than 400%. SideQuest, a term originally used in gaming, has taken on a new life online. It describes the activities and adventures in which people partake outside their routines to add whimsy to their lives. According to TikTok, US posts using the term SideQuest increased over 210% this year compared with the same time period last year. Lisa Kimura, a 31-year-old experienced designer in Brooklyn, has mastered the art of the SideQuest. Early last year, she learned to DJ, inspired by a flourishing music scene in her Bushwick neighborhood that she felt needed more women. She also took a genealogy class last year and began building her family tree, then picked up Japanese calligraphy. Her most enduring passion, though, is fiber arts. She knits and dabbles in just about every fiber craft she can get her hands on, she said, including crochet, tapestry weaving, rug tufting, embroidery, and cross-stitch. Kimura moved to New York in 2023, excited for the dating scene. But as an introvert, she found the experience draining. She hasn't been on a date since last summer. I realized that it's really difficult for me to hear my inner voice when I'm in a relationship, or sometimes just in the presence of a man, she said. I grew up in a very traditional, very immigrant household where the patriarchy was alive and well. Hobbies have helped Kimura feel more secure and find her voice, partly because many of her hobbies end with a finished product, giving her a feeling of accomplishment. Unlike the women in previous generations in her family, whose lives were centered on marriage and raising children, she feels empowered to pursue the activities that bring her happiness. I feel like I can design my future, she said. As for romantic relationships, Kimura said she's not closed off to dating indefinitely. I just don't feel like I'm in such a rush anymore. Natalie Mora, a 21-year-old student in Berlin, said, I'm the single friend who's always doing everything. In addition to scuba diving, indoor cycling, bouldering, and boxing, you'll catch me skydiving, you'll catch me traveling anywhere, camel riding, horse riding. She continued, I'm young. I don't have a husband. I don't have kids. I'm the happiest I've ever been. Single. According to Amy Chan, a dating coach and author of a book called Unsingle, How to Date Smarter and Create Love That Lasts, people have dating fatigue. They are just so disappointed with the apps that some of them are not dating at all. For clients who tend to lose themselves in relationships, Chan advises shifting focus away from finding dates and toward building a rich personal life first. It's really, let's build a full life so that you're not coming from a place of scarcity and you're not dating like you're starving, she said, adding that establishing independence creates a positive ripple effect when they do return to dating. There is a collective course correction around dating apps, which have been the centerpiece of dating in the last 10 years, added Dr. Solomon, the psychologist, and the solution is investing in real-world experiences. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, so long as it's not coming from a place of emotional retreat or avoidance, she said. Putting yourself out in the world with actual humans and actual art projects or creative endeavors or community endeavors, that's a really healthy adaptation. And those endeavors could even lead to new romantic prospects who have common interests. When a relationship ended 5 years ago, Laura Greaves, who works in marketing in London, hated being single. Over time, as she saw friends go through different stages of their relationships, she thought, I have so much freedom. I have all my own money to spend. I can go on whatever holidays I want. Once she reframed her perspective, she felt lucky. Now Greaves, 44, said she is thriving in her solo era. After finishing work at 5 p.m., instead of spending her evening wallowing in bed, as she has had done sometimes before, she began lighting candles, putting on a movie, and crocheting, watercoloring, doing puzzles, or making pottery. She began looking forward to her activities after work and realized that relationships are not the goal. The goal is actually to enjoy your own company, and the best way to do this is to find a hobby that you absolutely love and you can lose yourself in and get in that flow state, Greaves said. Jenna Kai, the owner of Pella Kitchen, hosts cake decorating classes in New York that are popular for singles. So many folks join for solo dates and things to do as an alternative to dating apps, she said. I think right now there's a kind of a boom in people wanting to do these sorts of activities, something that's creative, tactile, and also not focused on drinking. For Michael Foslow, who lives in Cambridge, England, and works in marketing, that has included paddleboarding, open water swimming, and baking. He took on these activities in January after splitting with a long-term partner. He has 2 teenage children who have become more independent and developed their own social circles. Those 2 factors combined left Foslow, 42, to do a lot of soul-searching. It started with baby steps, he said. I'm just trying to do things to get my spark back, to lift my mood, to give me something to do. I think where I maybe have gone wrong in the past is I've kind of defined happiness by a successful relationship, Foslow said. His definition has since changed, though. The more confident, the more fulfilled, the more I expand my social network, he said, the better partner I will be in the future, and the more likely I am to find the right partner as well. Their school banned bonnets and durags. Did it need to? Students at Tuskegee University, a historically black university in Alabama, objected to the new dress code, saying it was unnecessary and misunderstood the campus culture. By Sandra E. Garcia. In a recent letter to students, Tuskegee University in Alabama outlined several new policies set to go into effect in the coming school year. Cell phones are to be turned off during class, the school warned, and attendance will be tracked. But the change that received the most attention was the new dress code. Students are prohibited from wearing revealing clothing in class, to the cafeteria, or in official settings like convocation, Mark A. Brown, the university's president, wrote. They are also not able to wear bedroom shoes, bonnets, or durags to class or the cafeteria. In an interview, Brown said that his only aim with the new dress code was to give students a place to practice for life after graduation. The only need we feel is to prepare students to be successful. That's it, he said. Tuskegee has always believed, he added, that we owe it to our students to prepare them for whatever space they desire to go into. Black hair and the items used to maintain it are often policed by schools and other institutions. The NFL and NBA have barred players from wearing do-rags, which, like bonnets, are used to protect natural hair. UPS didn't allow black employees to wear their hair natural until 2020, and in 2018, a black student athlete had his dreadlocks cut off in a high school gym in order to participate in a wrestling match. But the restrictions can feel more pointed when handed down by a steward of black life. In this case, one of the country's most respected historically black universities. Brown, a Tuskegee graduate from the class of 1986, suggested that none of the expectations were new. The requirements of Tuskegee, a private historically black college and university that's been around for about 145 years, is that students adhere to the policies, he said. This is less about enforcement. It is about student success. The university has a strong record of improving its students' economic prospects after graduation. According to an expansive 2017 study, 1/3 of Tuskegee students moved up 2 or more income quintiles. Some 5.2% came from poor families, but grew up to become rich adults. Dezora Pickney, an incoming freshman, began to question what the dress code would mean for her mornings after she saw the note, which was sent to students on July 22nd. 9 days out from her move-in date, she wondered what she would wear to breakfast or how long it would take her to get ready in the morning. I just wake up, I go get my food, I eat, I collect my thoughts, I get ready for my day, Pickney, 18, said on a break from packing up her belongings ahead of her first big move. I don't want to really be worried about changing. She was caught off guard by the note. I think setting a dress code for students who pay to go to school in general kind of shocked me, she said, adding that she did not normally wear bonnets and pajamas to class while she was in high school. Attending an HBCU, I kind of knew that business casual was standard. Taylor Wilson, 19, an animal and veterinary sciences major, will be starting her sophomore year at Tuskegee this month. When she received the memo explaining the new dress code, she mostly brushed it off, taking it to mean the school was trying to prioritize professionalism in general. I was fine with that, Wilson said. But after I was seeing a little bit of stuff online, I went back and read the email, and that's when I first saw the extent to which the university was taking it. The other new policies included one that prohibits the use of electronic devices in class except when expressly authorized by the instructor, and another introducing a penalty of a full letter grade reduction for 4 unexcused absences. I just feel like a lot of people saw all of that, but their only focus was on do-rags and bonnets, Wilson said. Overall, it was unnecessary for the university to put out the dress code because I just feel like there are much bigger problems at hand right now, she added, alluding to disarray in the assignment of on-campus student housing as Tuskegee prepares to receive a record number of new students. When Rain Caldwell, 19, the sophomore class president, got the email on the new dress code, she was perplexed, she said. I know I personally can't get anyone to even answer the phone to get my housing cleared, get my financial aid cleared, or anything, she said. So when I saw the dress code, I was like, oh my gosh, why are we focused on this? Caldwell also suggested that even before the new dress code was announced, student attire was not an issue on campus. This is not a problem that Tuskegee students have ever had, she said. I've never seen anyone going to class in bonnets. I've not seen anyone doing anything that was unprofessional. The preoccupation with professionalism can be loaded, particularly when it comes to black dress. Fitted caps, sagging pants, and, as name-checked in the Tuskegee letter, bedroom shoes have frequently emerged as cultural lightning rods in discussions of respectable politics. In 2008, Barack Obama suggested that passing a law against sagging pants would be a waste of time, but that black men should avoid the trend out of respect for other people. To Caldwell, the very suggestion that this rule needed to be put in place was somewhat insulting to the Tuskegee student body. I feel people took that as a little bit disrespectful, maybe a little ignorant even, she said, adding that the university already had a strong dress-to-impress culture. It's such a non-issue, she said. It is quite the opposite of what people are saying it is. In her first year at Tuskegee, Wilson, the rising sophomore, participated in campus events, including one boasting 100 men in suits and 100 women in heels. There is also Fried Chicken Wednesday and Fried Fish Friday, which invite students to put on their best outfits to share a meal in the cafeteria, she said. People don't just walk around in pajamas and slippers and bonnets, Wilson said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Inside a special screening of Anthony Bourdain's biopic of His Comrades, several hosts, bartenders, line cooks, dishwashers, and chefs were treated to a night at the movies to watch the new film Tony by Alicia Haradasani Gupta. Sorry, Alicia. Anthony Bourdain called America's professional kitchens the last refuge of the misfit in an essay published in The New Yorker in 1999. They're a place, he wrote, that embraces those who have turned their backs on the 9-to-5 grind and have given up on ever having a Friday or Saturday night off or a normal relationship with a non-cook. On Monday night, many self-described misfits went to the movies. In 25 cities across the country, including Austin, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, hundreds of restaurant workers gathered at cinemas for an early screening of Tony, a feature film directed by Matt Johnson that follows Bourdain during a summer in the 1970s he spent working as a dishwasher at Flagship, an oyster joint in Provincetown, Massachusetts. The events, organized by OpenTable, Square, and the movie's production company A24, ahead of the film's release on Friday, were a kind of salute to Bourdain's world. In New York, servers, hosts, bartenders, line cooks, dishwashers, and of course chefs from a range of the city's dining staples, including Odeon, Black Seed Bagels, Wegmans, and L'Artusi, were invited to spend the night at Regal Cinema Times Square. They greeted one another with hugs and fist pumps as they picked up caps that read "Support local restaurants" and reached for sodas served in giant plastic deli containers. I went into an Anthony Bourdain spiral last night, one woman admitted to another. Me too, her friend replied. The screening opened with a pre-recorded message from Johnson, Dominic Sessa, who plays Bourdain, and Leo Woodhall, who plays a line cook for the restaurant industry workers in the room. The movie is a love letter to you, Johnson said. As the film played, many in the audience winced at rookie mistakes from a man who, when he died at 61 in 2018, had ascended to some of the greatest heights of the food world. They laughed at the familiar on-screen grime of the kitchen, and when the movie ended, they applauded and cheered. Guests then walked a few blocks through Times Square to an after-party at the Mermaid Oyster Bar, in a nod to Bourdain's culinary roots and his publicly declared love for oysters. It's quite rare that all these people have a night off, said Jihan Lee, chef and partner at Nami Nori, a Tamaki restaurant. The fact that everyone showed up and shows what kind of impact Anthony Bourdain had on the people in our industry. Lee said the movie gave him a lot of flashbacks as someone who climbed the ranks in some of New York's most esteemed Japanese restaurants, including Capo Masa. Tony, like the award-winning television series The Bear, arrives as fascination with kitchen culture and obsession with flavorful foods have reached new heights, or lengths if you measure it by the lines. And some in the industry feel this shift has also brought a new respect for their labor. There's a lot of cultural capital now with being in the industry because you're a part of an experience, which became increasingly valuable after the COVID pandemic amid rising fears about AI, said Leonardo Real, a beverage manager at MoMA, who began his career at City Bakery and Daily Provisions. You're part of the institutions that people look up to now. As partygoers mingled around the room, the words Kitchen Confidential, the title of Bourdain's best-selling memoir, seemed to be uttered almost as frequently as drinks were poured at the open bar. I never thought I wanted to be a chef growing up, but I always loved cooking, said Elliot Dubois, a sous chef at Kabawa. Dubois read Bourdain's tell-all memoir after dropping out of college and remembered thinking, "Oh, this sounds exactly like me." I connected with his story so much, and then I got a job at a local whiskey bar in my area, and I just worked my way up from there. When plans for Tony were announced several years ago, there were online grumblings that Bourdain would have hated the mythologization of that. But of course, it's hard to know. Perhaps he may have enjoyed a few oysters among the industry friends he often referred to as comrades. Max Glogow, a manager at Momofuku Noodle Bar, said the movie captured the family vibe of a kitchen where you hate each other, you love each other, and you see each other every day. Standing next to him, Sarah Wagner, his friend and co-worker, laughed and agreed. Modern love. No more sex, flirting, scrolling, or swiping. I wanted to live like a turtle in the safety of my shell. By Jessica Enriquez. When a female sea turtle hatches, she's maybe 2 inches long, and her first act in life is a wild sprint to the water. She doesn't look back or hesitate. She runs. She'll spend the next few decades in open ocean before finding her way back to the exact stretch of sand where she was born to lay eggs. She carries a map inside her body, an imprint of her beach, encoded before she ever reaches the waves. Scientists call this natal homing. I've always imagined that we carry maps like this too, destinations we're moving toward before we know exactly where we're headed. Somewhere in my late 30s, I began to fear that there was more life behind me than ahead, that my greatest loves had come and gone, and now the doors are closing, and that was it. It was all I would get. I believed this, and I thought, fine. What I had wanted wasn't to be loved or chosen. I had wanted to feel safe inside my own life, to be in a room with someone without cataloging what I'd said wrong, waiting to forgive or apologize, and a man had never given me that. I had been proposed to 4 times, said yes to half of them, married and divorced twice before I was 30. I'd loved people who had loved me back, and none of it had left me feeling like I was on solid ground. I kept thinking the next person would steady me. I edged towards 40 the way a person finishes a marathon, legs cramping, lungs burning, too depleted to feel triumphant. Each relationship had required a different version of me, and I had shapeshifted each time, losing a little more of whatever self I had started with. If the doors were really closing, I thought I could live with that. I was so tired of running from something towards something, which is maybe why I went looking for turtles in the first place. The Turtle Conservancy sits on 90 acres of dry chaparral at the foot of California's Topatopa Mountains. More than 600 turtles and tortoises live there, tended by keepers who move through the enclosures with a patience that looks like devotion. I raked the enclosures, added fresh avocado leaves, refilled plates with lettuce and flowers and dried cuttlefish. I spent mornings rubbing coconut oil into turtle shells with my hands while they pressed into me with something that felt like trust. Up close, a tortoise shell is art. Each scoot is ringed with overlapping lines. The patterns repeat across their backs, but never exactly. This is what it looks like to carry your whole history on the outside. Before I started coming here, I thought a turtle's shell was a borrowed house it would outgrow and leave behind. But the shell is not something the turtle carries. It's something the turtle is. I thought about this constantly. wondering what it must feel like to be born with such safety. There were so many nights throughout married life, lying in bed with my lamp on, listening to my husband breathe beside me. He loved me as much as he could love, in the ways he knew how, and I lay there calculating the distance between us, the inches of sheet so wide I couldn't imagine crossing over to his side. I didn't say anything. I never did. That was the whole problem, and also the whole marriage. A woman turning off her light, believing there were things that could stay unseen. I lost count of how many times I reached for his hand during an argument while my body was still shaking. I had become so fluent in abandoning myself that I offered tenderness before ever acknowledging my own injuries. It's possible to be loved and still not feel safe. What was missing was something I didn't yet have a name for, something I kept asking the wrong people to provide. I was giving every man who loved me an impossible job. Be solid, so I feel solid. Protect me, so I feel protected. There's one turtle I've grown attached to. I named him Damien. Damien the doorstop. Galapagos tortoises can live well over 100 years. Many have been alive since before the Civil War, before the telephone, before any version of existence I would recognize. Every morning when I open the gate, Damien is blocking the doorway with his entire body, a nonchalant boulder. The other tortoises eventually climb over him. He comes out when he's ready. He's old enough to operate on his own time. I get it. Something shifted in me the year I turned 40. A bone-deep, almost chemical unwillingness to move before I was ready. An end to the apologizing and accommodating. Go around me. Most people don't know that if you gently scratch a turtle's shell with your fingertips across its domed hump, something happens that the keepers call flinching. The turtle rises up on its legs, almost hydraulically, extends its neck, and its whole body lifts toward the touch, as if to say, "Yes, thank you, more please." It doesn't lunge or race. It just slowly rises to meet whatever feels good. I had never once flinched. I only knew how to lunge. I collected beginnings the way some people collect debt, excitedly, quickly, with confidence that future me would sort it out. The hours-long phone calls, the feeling of being freshly known. I was exceptionally good at that. It was the long middle that got me. The laundry, the grocery lists, the fights, the distance between the life they had promised and the life they could actually offer. It took me a while to understand that I wasn't falling in love so much as falling in love with the falling. I was chasing something that dissolved when I caught it. Every time I told myself the problem was the person, the right one I believed would sustain that free fall. I was like the hare in the fable who loves running so much that she forgets there's a finish line. All circles and speed and the sound of her own breathing. I had stepped over so much of what love wasn't that I had become fluent in its imitations. The weight of a relationship held together by momentum. How we stay because leaving requires admitting how long ago we should have left. I knew what it felt like to disappear by degrees. The opinions first, then the needs, then the preferences, then finally the instincts whispering, "Something is very wrong." When I went looking for the self I had silenced, I found only a woman-shaped cutout where I used to be. So I stopped searching. No flirting, no sex, scrolling or swiping. No one to manage or impress. I stopped avoiding my own company and started noticing who I was when no one was watching. The first month it felt like withdrawal. The third felt like ease. Around the 6th, I started to hear myself think. And somewhere in that stillness, I found my way back to the woman I had been before I let other people tell me who to be. She was defiant and funny and brave. She pulled over for sunsets and cried when other people cried. She learned how to keep things alive in the garden, then in herself. And she stopped caring so much what anyone else thought of her. By the time I found the Turtle Conservancy, I was almost 2 years into being alone. I came each week and learned to step carefully around animals that didn't need me to rush. I prepared the enclosures for hibernation, making small shelters for bodies that knew when to retreat. And one afternoon, elbow deep in hay and leaves, I felt the thing I had been looking for. The ground solid beneath my feet, holding me up from the inside. Nobody tells you that becoming yourself again is unglamorous. It's mostly unlearning and erasing, and saying no to the things you used to say yes to. And then one day it's just there. You've become someone who takes her time and doesn't apologize for it. Someone who can sit in the silence, trusting she will survive whatever comes next. Someone who knows what it is to move through the world without needing anyone to stand between her and it. Science call the years between a turtle hatching and returning home the lost years, because there's so little data on where she went or what she did. But I don't think she was lost at all. Decades of open water, thousands of miles of strong current, violent drifts, and the slow shift of the magnetic field itself, and still her map stayed steady. She didn't need anyone to show her the way home. She just had to stop long enough to feel the pull. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the August 9th issue of the New York Times Style section. Your reader has been Laura. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the USA Today. Following that at 2 o'clock is episode number 8 of Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, broadcasting daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Radio Reading's website is nfradioreading.org. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents